You were not born to please everyone. You were born to live in alignment with your truth, your energy, and your vision. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve you, you are silently saying no to yourself. And that's the moment your power leaks. Think about it. How many times have you agreed to things out of fear? Fear of being judged, fear of losing someone's approval, fear of seeming difficult. But what's the real cost of that fear? It's the erosion of your self-respect piece by piece, decision by decision. Boundaries define self-worth. It's one of those truths that most people only realize after years of saying yes to everything and everyone, after the burnout, after the emotional exhaustion, after losing sight of who they truly are. You see, boundaries are not walls. They are the lines that define where you end and where someone else begins. They are not about control. They are about clarity. When you draw a boundary, you are not shutting the world out. You are simply telling the world how to treat you. Most people think respect is something others give you, but real respect begins within. When you fail to respect your own boundaries, you teach others that it's acceptable to do the same. Every time you agree to something that goes against your values, your limits, or your energy, you are silently teaching others how to treat you and how much of yourself you are willing to compromise. That's why boundaries are not selfish, they're sacred. They are the invisible framework that holds your self-worth together. Think of your energy as water inside a container. Every time you say yes when you really want to say no, you poke a small hole in that container. One hole might not matter much at first, but keep saying yes out of guilt or fear, and eventually your container runs empty. That's when you start to feel drained, resentful, and disconnected. The truth is, you can't pour into others if your own cup is dry. Boundaries are what keep that cup full. Now, the challenge with boundaries isn't understanding their importance, it's having the courage to enforce them. We've been conditioned from childhood to associate saying no with rejection. We fear disappointing people. We fear losing their approval. But what's the cost of constantly avoiding that discomfort? It's the slow erosion of self-trust. When you continuously silence your own needs to please others, your subconscious begins to believe that your feelings don't matter. You start to doubt your own voice, but when you set a boundary and honor it, something profound happens within you. You begin to build an internal sense of safety. Your nervous system relaxes because you're no longer betraying yourself to meet external expectations. You start to feel grounded, like you can trust yourself again. That's what boundaries do. They rebuild the bridge between your inner world and your outer actions. They align your behavior with your truth. And here's what's beautiful: when you respect your own boundaries, others start to respect them too. Not because you demand it, but because your energy changes. People sense when you have self-respect. It's not in your words, it's in your presence. You no longer chase validation, you embody it. You no longer seek permission to exist, you take up space with confidence. Boundaries also filter your environment. They reveal who truly values you and who only values your compliance. The ones who get offended by your boundaries were never benefiting your growth. They were benefiting from your lack of them. Let them go. Because when you say no to what diminishes you, you make room for what nourishes you. It's not easy at first. Saying no will feel uncomfortable. You might feel guilt or fear, but discomfort is not danger, it's growth. Every time you honor your limits, you reinforce your worth. Every time you choose peace over pleasing, you strengthen your power. So ask yourself, what am I allowing that drains me? Where am I saying yes out of fear instead of authenticity? What would it look like if I respected myself enough to say no? Boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They're about keeping your integrity intact. When you learn to set them, you don't lose people, you lose the versions of yourself that tolerated less than you deserve. And that's not loss, that's liberation. Because the moment you start respecting your boundaries, the world starts respecting you. And that's when you finally realize self-worth isn't something you find. It's something you protect. Energy is currency. Every thought, every emotion, every decision, and every interaction either spends or replenishes it. The way you invest your energy determines the quality of your life. Most people understand the value of money, yet they spend their energy carelessly saying yes to things that drain them, engaging in conversations that deplete them, or staying in environments that pull them away from who they truly are. What they don't realize is that energy, unlike money, is not something you can simply earn back by working harder. Once your energy is depleted, everything you touch, your work, your relationships, your creativity begins to suffer. You must begin to see your energy as sacred, as something to be managed with precision and respect. When you wake up each day, you have a limited amount of emotional, mental, and spiritual energy. Every yes you give is an investment. The question is, are you investing in growth or in exhaustion? Too often, we pour ourselves into people, habits, or routines that don't align with our higher purpose. We give time to what's urgent instead of what's meaningful. We confuse being busy with being productive, and in doing so, we lose touch with our inner rhythm. Saying no is one of the most powerful financial decisions you can make for your energy bank. It's like saving your emotional currency for things that truly matter. When you say no to negativity, gossip, or unnecessary obligations, you're not being rude, you're being financially intelligent with your life force. You're choosing to invest in peace, clarity, and vitality instead of chaos and fatigue. Think about it. Every conversation, every commitment, every environment either deposits or withdraws from your energy account. If you keep spending on things that yield no return, you'll eventually fall into emotional debt, drained, uninspired, and detached from your own potential. There's also a deeper dimension to this truth. Energy is not just physical stamina, it's vibration. You attract what matches your energetic state. When you surround yourself with draining people or activities, your frequency lowers. You start resonating with stress, frustration, and resistance. But when you protect your energy and align it with things that uplift you, your frequency rises. Opportunities flow more easily. You start drawing people and experiences that reflect your inner peace. That's why the most successful and centered people in the world guard their energy fiercely. They know it's the foundation of creation. Managing your energy means being aware of what and who you give your attention to. Attention is the steering wheel of your energy. Wherever your attention goes, your energy follows. So if you spend your days worrying about what others think, replaying old mistakes, or entertaining meaningless distractions, you're leaking energy into the past and into things you can't control. But when you focus your attention on what empowers you, growth, gratitude, purpose, you're multiplying your energy instead of losing it. The truth is, you can't live at your highest potential if you're running on empty. You can't manifest clarity from chaos. You can't create abundance while your inner energy is being spent on survival. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's strategic. It's how you ensure that your inner power is available for the things that truly matter: your dreams, your peace, your evolution. So take a moment and ask yourself, where am I spending my energy that brings no return? What conversations, habits, or thoughts are draining my emotional account? And what would my life look like if I started treating my energy like the most valuable currency in existence? When you begin to respect your energy, everything shifts. You become intentional with your time, selective with your commitments, and clear with your boundaries. You stop being available for every noise that knocks at your door. You start living from a place of strength instead of scarcity. Because in the end, it's not about how much you do, it's about how deeply you invest your energy. The quality of your life is not measured by how busy you are, but by how consciously you spend your inner power. Respect your energy, spend it wisely. It's the most valuable currency you will ever own. A network error occurred. Please check your connection and try again. If this issue persists, please contact us through our help center at help.openai.com. Fear of disapproval keeps you small. It's one of the quietest yet most powerful forms of self-sabotage. From a young age, we're conditioned to seek acceptance, to follow the rules, to fit in, to be liked. We learn that validation equals safety, that pleasing others earns us love, and that rejection means we've done something wrong. Over time, this conditioning becomes a subconscious program that controls how we think, act, and even dream. We begin to measure our worth not by who we are, but by how others respond to us. And so, we shrink not because we lack potential, but because we fear losing approval. The need for approval is a hidden cage. It keeps you trapped in behaviors that betray your authenticity. You agree to things you don't want, laugh at jokes that don't amuse you, or stay silent when your truth is begging to be spoken. Every time you choose comfort over courage, you reinforce the belief that your value depends on someone else's opinion. But here's the truth: it doesn't. Approval is temporary, self-respect is permanent. When you live for approval, you give away your power. You hand over the steering wheel of your life to people who don't even know your destination. The fear of disapproval is deeply tied to our survival instincts. The human brain is wired for connection thousands of years ago. Being excluded from the tribe meant death. That's why rejection still feels painful. But what was once a survival mechanism has now become a psychological prison. In today's world, being true to yourself doesn't lead to physical danger, it leads to emotional freedom. Yet so many people stay in mental chains, afraid to disappoint others, afraid to be misunderstood. The irony is that in trying to be everything for everyone, you end up being nothing for yourself. Growth begins the moment you decide that your peace is more important than people's approval. The moment you realize that rejection doesn't diminish your worth, it reveals where you don't belong. Not everyone will understand your path, and that's okay. You are not meant to be universally accepted. You are meant to be authentically aligned. When you stop chasing validation, you start attracting respect. When you stop needing everyone's agreement, you begin to live with freedom. The truth is, the people who truly value you will never demand that you betray yourself to earn their love. They will respect your boundaries, appreciate your honesty, and celebrate your growth, even when it makes them uncomfortable. Those who withdraw their affection because you said no were never loving you. They were loving their ability to control you. And losing that is not loss, it's liberation. The moment you stop fearing disapproval, you begin to expand. Your voice becomes stronger, your choices bolder, your vision clearer. You start saying what you mean and meaning what you say. You start trusting your intuition more than people's opinions. That's when your life begins to align with who you truly are, not with who others expect you to be. Freedom is not found in being liked by everyone, it's found in being at peace with yourself, even when no one agrees with you. The greatest leaders, creators, and thinkers were once criticized, doubted, and dismissed, but they didn't stop because of it. They understood that disapproval is the shadow of transformation, a sign that you are stepping out of the familiar into the authentic. So, the next time you feel the weight of someone's opinion pressing against your truth, pause and remember this. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You don't need to explain your boundaries, your dreams, or your choices. The only approval you need is your own, because when you finally stop living for applause, you start living for purpose, and purpose, unlike approval, will never abandon you. Awareness creates power. It is the foundation of all transformation. You cannot change what you do not recognize, and you cannot heal what you continue to ignore. Most people live their lives on autopilot, reacting, repeating, reliving the same emotions, the same choices, the same patterns, day after day. They mistake movement for progress, noise for growth, and distraction for purpose. But until awareness enters the picture, nothing truly changes. Awareness is the light that exposes what's been hidden in the shadows of your mind. It is the moment you wake up and realize that your life is not happening to you, it is being shaped by you. When you begin to observe yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors without judgment, you start to see the truth of who you are and how you've been conditioned. You start to recognize the moments you give away your power, the times you say yes when you want to say no, the situations that trigger your fears or insecurities. Awareness doesn't always feel comfortable because it confronts the illusions you've lived with for years. But discomfort is the birthplace of growth. Awareness cracks open the old identity so a higher version of you can emerge. Many people seek to change their circumstances without ever changing their state of awareness. They switch jobs, end relationships, or move to new places, but the same challenges follow them. Why? Because the external world is a mirror of the internal one. Until you change the pattern within, the reflection outside remains the same. Awareness is what breaks that cycle. The moment you become aware of your repetitive patterns, the beliefs you inherited, the emotional loops you replay, you reclaim your freedom to choose differently. Awareness also brings responsibility. Once you see the truth, you can no longer pretend you don't. You can't unknow the fact that you've been settling, people, pleasing, or doubting yourself. Awareness holds you accountable to your own potential. It asks you to take ownership of your energy, your time, your focus, and your choices. That's where real power begins, not in control over others, but in mastery over yourself. When you are aware, you stop being reactive. You stop letting external circumstances dictate your internal state. You begin to respond consciously instead of emotionally. Someone's criticism no longer triggers your insecurity, it activates your awareness. A setback no longer feels like failure, it becomes feedback. Every moment becomes an opportunity to learn, to align, to evolve. That is what awareness does. It transforms life from a series of random events into a field of conscious creation. It's important to understand that awareness is not about perfection, it's about presence. It's not about eliminating negative emotions, but about understanding them. When you feel anger, sadness, or fear, awareness allows you to step back and ask, what is this emotion trying to teach me? What story am I believing that creates this feeling? That pause, that moment of self-observation is where power lies. It's the space between reaction and response where transformation happens. Awareness is also the beginning of compassion. When you become aware of your own pain, your own limitations, and the patterns that shaped you, you begin to see others differently too. You realize that everyone is doing their best from their level of awareness. That understanding softens your heart and strengthens your boundaries at the same time. You no longer carry resentment because you see that unconscious people act unconsciously. You stop taking things personally because awareness gives you clarity, and clarity brings peace. To live without awareness is to live asleep. To live with awareness is to live empowered. Every great change in your life, every breakthrough, every healing, every moment of courage begins with awareness. It is the seed of all growth. When you become aware, you stop asking life to change and start becoming the change itself. That is true power, not control, not dominance, but conscious creation. Awareness is where your freedom begins, and once you have it, no one can take it away from you. Saying no triggers guilt only when your subconscious is conditioned to please. From the moment we are children, we're taught that approval equals love and that compliance equals worthiness. When we do what pleases others, we are rewarded with praise, affection, and acceptance. When we assert ourselves or disagree, we often face disappointment, rejection, or punishment. Over time, this shapes a deep subconscious belief that our value comes from being agreeable, from being useful, from keeping the peace. And so, we grow into adults who struggle to say no, not because we don't know how, but because somewhere deep inside, we fear that saying no will cost us love. This guilt doesn't come from the act of saying no itself. It comes from the emotional program running beneath it. The mind has been conditioned to associate no with conflict, rejection, or selfishness, so even when you consciously know you need to decline something, your body reacts with discomfort, a tightening in the chest, a rush of anxiety, a whispering thought that says, "You're being rude," or "They'll think less of you." This isn't truth, it's conditioning. The guilt you feel is not a signal that you're wrong, it's evidence that you're breaking an old pattern. To free yourself from this guilt, you must begin by observing it. The next time you feel that inner resistance to saying no, pause and notice what your mind is telling you. Whose voice do you hear? Maybe it's a parent who taught you that good children don't refuse, or a teacher who praised you for always helping others, or a friend who made you feel guilty for setting boundaries. Awareness of the source weakens the hold of the pattern. You start to realize that guilt isn't truth, it's memory. It's the echo of a time when pleasing others felt like survival. Reprogramming this conditioning begins with permission to honor yourself without apology. When you say no from a place of self-respect, you are not rejecting the person. You are honoring your own limits. You are saying yes to balance, yes to peace, yes to your authentic self. At first, it will feel uncomfortable because your subconscious still believes that your worth is tied to other people's happiness. But each time you choose integrity over approval, the guilt loses power. You are teaching your nervous system that safety can exist even when you stand your ground. It's important to remember that guilt is not your enemy, it's a sign of expansion. It means you are moving beyond the old version of yourself, the one who sacrificed inner peace for external harmony. Growth always feels awkward before it feels empowering. The same way muscles ache when they grow, your emotional body aches when it breaks free from old programming. Let the discomfort be a teacher, not a deterrent. When you stop pleasing everyone, you start healing yourself. You begin to see that your value was never dependent on how much you give, fix, or agree. True kindness does not require self-betrayal. Real love does not demand you abandon your needs to make others comfortable. The people meant for your journey will respect your boundaries because they respect your energy. Those who don't were never aligned with your truth to begin with. So, the next time you feel guilt rising when you say no, remind yourself, this feeling is not a sign that you're doing something wrong, it's a sign that you're finally doing something right. You are breaking free from a lifetime of conditioning that taught you to trade authenticity for approval. Every no you speak with integrity rewires your subconscious and rebuilds your self-trust. Eventually, the guilt fades and is replaced with peace, the deep, quiet peace that comes from knowing you no longer need to sacrifice yourself to be loved. You realize that love built on obedience is not love, it's dependency. And when you finally step into your truth, you attract relationships, opportunities, and experiences that honor who you really are. Because when you no longer fear saying no, your yes becomes powerful, intentional, and true. Freedom lives in alignment. Alignment means that your thoughts, emotions, and actions are all moving in the same direction toward what is true for you. It's living in harmony with your values, your inner voice, and your higher purpose. Most people mistake freedom for the ability to do anything they want. But real freedom isn't about doing everything, it's about doing what feels right for your soul. You can have all the choices in the world and still be trapped if you're living out of alignment with who you truly are. Alignment is the silent power that turns confusion into clarity and chaos into peace. When you live out of alignment, you feel it immediately. There's a sense of heaviness, restlessness, or emotional fatigue. You wake up and feel disconnected, even if your life looks successful from the outside. That's because your inner world knows the truth your outer world refuses to acknowledge. Maybe you're in a job that pays well but drains your energy. Maybe you're in relationships that look perfect but leave your heart unfulfilled. Or maybe you keep saying yes to things that betray your own limits. That inner discomfort is not failure, it's feedback. It's your soul's way of saying you're moving away from who you are. Alignment requires courage because it often demands that you make hard choices that may disappoint others but liberate yourself. It means saying no to paths that don't serve you, even if they're comfortable. It means walking away from people, habits, or environments that keep you stuck in patterns of smallness. And it means trusting that when you honor your truth, life will rise to meet you with opportunities that match your authenticity. The path of alignment isn't always easy, but it is always worth it, because while comfort can make you feel safe for a moment, alignment gives you peace that lasts. When you live in alignment, your energy becomes magnetic. You stop chasing things because what's meant for you naturally begins to move toward you. Decisions become clearer, relationships become deeper, and your confidence grows not from ego, but from integrity. You no longer live in resistance or contradiction. What you say, what you believe, and what you do are one. That internal coherence is what creates true strength. It's the foundation of self-respect and the essence of personal power. The greatest trap of misalignment is self-betrayal, the quiet ways you abandon yourself to keep others comfortable or to meet expectations that no longer fit your evolution. You tell yourself that it's easier to compromise than to confront. But each small act of self-betrayal chips away at your freedom. You start living according to someone else's version of happiness, and over time, you lose connection to your own. Freedom can't exist where you're pretending to be something you're not. Living in alignment means choosing authenticity over approval and truth over tradition. It means listening to your intuition, that quiet inner guidance that always knows the next step, even when logic can't see the full path. Your intuition is the voice of alignment. It doesn't scream, it whispers, but the more you listen, the stronger it becomes. It will guide you toward the people, experiences, and places that match your frequency. When you follow it, you stop forcing life to happen and start flowing with it. True alignment doesn't require perfection, it requires honesty. It asks you to pause, reflect, and ask yourself, does this choice honor who I am becoming? Does this action support my peace? Does this relationship reflect mutual respect and growth? When the answer is no, you have the responsibility and the right to realign. Every time you choose truth over comfort, you strengthen your freedom. Freedom isn't found in escaping responsibility or avoiding discomfort. It's found in living as your authentic self, unedited, unapologetic, and awake. When you are in alignment, you no longer need to chase happiness, you embody it. You no longer seek validation because you are rooted in truth. That's when life stops feeling like a struggle and begins to feel like a flow, a rhythm between who you are and what you're becoming. And that is where true freedom lives, not in rebellion, but in alignment with your highest self.